Hello everybody, there's 7 days to go in this transfer window. As we know, it's been a shortened window because of the World Cup. We're interested in what Liverpool may or may not do. And joining me tonight, I've got Chris and I've got Dave to have a little chat about what the last 7 days will bring for Liverpool Football Club, or indeed what it may not bring. Dave, last night we seen the journalists putting up emojis on Twitter. I had Liverpool Twitter into a frenzy. It was the Fekir situation, but now, buddy, it's after becoming the Fekir and Pulisic situation. What's your gut feeling on this? Are we going to see either of these in the last 7 days, or maybe somebody completely out of nowhere that we weren't expecting?
I think with the two of them, I think the most likely is going to be Pulisic, but I don't think it's going to happen this window. Rafael Augustin came out and said that he wouldn't be surprised if Liverpool had done a kind of a Naby Keita deal, which makes sense as well. Liverpool want to tie down a player, kind of get the best value they can for him, but also kind of keep up a good relationship maybe with Dortmund as well. I can't see Fekir happening now, if I'm totally honest with you. But who knows in this transfer window, the way the club have, and may I say, done very well in this transfer window, anything could just happen like that. We've seen Fabinho happened in hours. Alisson happened in a couple of days. So nothing would surprise me, to be perfectly honest.
We did see that Aulas had given a deadline of the end of July day for this deal to happen for Fekir. Well, that deadline has now passed, but I still don't feel that that was the absolute cut-off point, if I'm being honest.
No, I wouldn't believe anything that really comes out of this enough, because all this talk for United are after and Real Madrid are after, when there hasn't been any kind of bid from any of them teams. And particularly when you look at United as well, they're in the same boat as us. The transfer window, as he said, is closing in 7 days. Surely they have to be in for a couple of players as well, because of what we've seen in pre-season, they're in no great shape. But look, back to the Reds.
Oh no, I don't mind poking fun at Mourinho for another couple of minutes. I mean, just before I came on, I noticed that they'd cooled their interest in Harry Maguire, by the way, and now they're interested in Yerry Mina, the Everton reject.
That's right. And also, What's-You-Call-Him's rejected them as well from Real Madrid. The midfielder, sorry, his name loses me now. Kovacic, is it?
Yeah, I mean, but Madrid were looking for crazy money for Mario Kovacic. I mean, they're something like 70 or 80 million quid.
I think what I seen, it was £53 million, and apparently, look, again, what I've read is he turned them down based on the fact that he didn't want to play for Mourinho. So that's fantastic, and long may that continue. But why don't we just put in a cheeky bid for Anthony Martial? Because he's one player I really rate. I think he has a lot of potential still. I just think he's been wasted at that football club with the way Mourinho plays his football. So why not going for him?
Obviously, when I said Yerry Mina was an Everton reject, what I meant is they decided he wasn't good enough to go after. But looking at Martial, we know Liverpool and United won't do any business, Dave. Let's be honest about that one. But he's certainly a player who's been mismanaged there at Manchester United. Today I was reading that he may be fined up to £160,000 for attending the birth of his child.
It's ridiculous. You know what I mean? It's absolutely ridiculous. Even back to the days of Fergie, there was a really nice story when Ronaldo's father was in a coma, and Fergie was like, "Look, just take as much time as you need. Football is the last thing that you need to think about." Whereas this dickhead, it's the other side, and that's kind of the respect I have for Fergie as well, because he was such a good man manager. I have zero respect for Firmino. I just think he's an absolute twat. But look, I hope he's at United. I hope he's at United for another 10, 15 years. And you can just see that the players have no interest in really playing for him. So,
and as you said, long may that continue. Absolutely. Chris, bringing it back to the Reds, buddy, I want to have a little talk, a bit more in depth about Christian Pulisic, because I kind of tend to follow what the bigger accounts are saying on this, and you can almost gauge who the club may be more interested in by listening to other podcasts or reading journalists and stuff, and just seeing kind of what line of questioning they're going along, and what kind of, you can almost tell, like say for the Anfield Rap, for instance, if they're bringing on German media personalities, or they're talking about Christian Pulisic more and more, then you kind of get the feeling that that's probably more likely than Nabil Fekir. And I get that feeling from journalists, and I'm not just including the Anfield Rap obviously there. I'm talking about James Pearce, Paul Joyce, other journalists, so I'm just reading between the lines and trying to figure out if any of them are viable. And Christian Pulisic is a name that just won't go away.
Well, now, I think there's a lot of people putting two and two together. I'm not saying there's nothing in it, and I think if if there is a chance that he's available, I do think we would be in the conversation. I'd be really surprised if we weren't. But he stalled or completely stopped his contract negotiations, didn't he? And didn't his father give an interview as well, saying that you can't guarantee being at the same club for I'm paraphrasing here, for his whole career. And I believe he also answered a few questions in the press regarding Liverpool and Jurgen Klopp, and basically spoke about his admiration. So you put all that together. You look at Dortmund as being a club who always seem to accept a reasonable fee for a player. You come to the conclusion that it's a transfer that could happen. The only question mark I put on it, though, is would he be happy coming into a squad where, and not, this is just from his point of view, and I'll come on to the club's point of view after. From his point of view, would he be happy going into a squad where he is perhaps going to have to wait quite a while for his chance? And I know we're going to see a lot of rotation, and I know he'll get some chances, but I'm thinking maybe from his perspective, he would like to be at a club where he knows he's going to be sort of a guaranteed name on the team sheet 9 games out of 10. Although I think if you're a top player, and I keep saying it, I keep repeating myself, you do have to back yourself. But from the club's perspective, on that same basis, would they be willing to part with 60 million? They were going to do it, going to part with somewhere near to that, weren't they? Well, perhaps a good 10 million less for Nabil Fekir. So that would suggest maybe the club are operating in those circles. They have got that mindset where they're willing to splash out to make sure they get the player that they want. So, there's mileage in it, isn't there? You can't ignore it. We've been in for him before, I believe, a couple of years ago when he was 17. I'm not sure what the fee was, but
30 or 35 million pound.
Yeah, we made an offer, didn't we? But it was somewhere just below that. But I think if you look at the way the market's gone since then, and the fact that the player has improved since then, I think the current figures banding around are somewhere around the 60 mark. That would probably represent good value. So maybe there's mileage in this one and something could happen.
Chris, would it shock you if I was to tell you that during his career at Borussia Dortmund, Christian Pulisic hasn't yet scored 10 league goals in total?
No, wouldn't surprise me. He's played for Dortmund as a first team, what you call regular, throughout a period of time where Dortmund have struggled a little bit. They've not been brilliant, have they? No. You can't put all that on his young shoulders, can you? They've had a lot of players who were aging and moving on. They sold a few stars. They were blooding a few more youngsters coming through, and they went through a couple of managers. I think they're just starting now to get a group of young, hungry players together, which is one of the reasons why I think if Liverpool do strike a deal, I don't think it'll be a deal that sees him at Anfield immediately. I think it'll be probably a key to style deal, and he will remain at Dortmund and be a regular in a side that really quite mimics us, but maybe on a rung of the ladder below. So that's kind of my view. But I don't really look at numbers too much. I've seen Salah come in and quadruple his numbers. We've seen Firmino double and treble his numbers. We've seen Mane increase his numbers as well. It's more about Klopp's system and how that gets the best out of players. So, if you've got a good, young, hungry, hard-working, talented player, surely he's gonna get some numbers, isn't he? We've seen firsthand, haven't we, a few times? Certainly this pre-season actually, that he's more than capable of moments of quality, and at a young age, there's plenty of room for improvement as well.
The reason that I touched on the goals thing, Chris, and saying that he's only scored 9, I think, in his career so far, Dortmund league goals, I should say, is because you mentioned that we were in from a couple of seasons ago. I think one of the main reasons they wouldn't let him go is because, if memory serves me correct, it was a January window, and I don't think they wanted to let him go in that window. But touching on the 35 million pound from then up to the 60 million pound now, honestly, that isn't really a jump. If we're allowing for inflation and the way the market's gone, it still, to me, represents really good value for that player.
Well, that's what I was saying, yeah. If you think what his value was then, and I know we offered somewhere near to that 30 million. I don't know the exact figure, but it was quite close. We weren't far off. We just weren't going to take that leap, that extra few million. And over those 2 years, the market's changed drastically. So I think you're spending 60 million pound on a player now. It's like spending 30 million a couple of years ago. But you've just made a point there about his numbers. They're not incredible. And, there are those circumstances that I've just pointed out that Dortmund haven't really been, a firing side for the last couple of years. But, people do look at numbers, and there will be some kind of view that, if you're going to spend 60 million, you want a player who has perhaps proved that he can, if he's an attacking player, he's got to prove that he can make a difference in that final third. His final end product is already there or somewhere near to. So there's a little bit of risk in it, but I think it's one worth taking. I think he has got enough quality, and I think in Klopp's system, he'd kick on, definitely.
Dave, if we're talking about numbers and we're saying that Christian Pulisic has a lot of potential, he's struggling to get the goals that maybe his skill deserves. But if we then switch over to Nabil Fekir, midfielder, attacking midfielder albeit, but a midfielder who scored, I think, 24, 25 goals or something last year for Lyon, and we're looking at buying him for, as Chris said, something like 13 million pound less.
I can kind of see, I'd be more on the side of Pulisic for FSG, because he kind of is the American poster boy. With FSG obviously being where they're from, Boston, it's such a huge market as well. I'm not just talking about football here, but Pulisic for 60 million would represent Liverpool earning such a huge amount of money in commercial deals, in shirt sales, in numbers on the backs of shirts, whereas Fekir wouldn't earn as much. So I can see where that price comparison is coming from. There's no doubt that Fekir is a more established player. He's obviously a World Cup winner and, in my opinion, a better player. Pulisic does have a lot of quality. He's absolutely, he definitely isn't the finished deal. Yes, the boy has such a high ceiling. But if you were going to ask me, if it gun to my head, who do you think FSG or Michael Edwards would sign out of Pulisic and Fekir? It'd be Pulisic, for the simple reason of the commercial aspect behind him.
Oh, there's no denying that he is an American club owner's wet dream. He's, as you said, the untapped potential there in the US market for a football base is huge. I mean, it is growing in the States. The MLS is obviously doing a good job in creating interest. The World Cup being there previously and going back there again, I should add,
that's right,
will certainly increase that as well. So you are right, from a marketing perspective, Christian Pulisic ticks absolutely every box.
And I think, look, and it's unfortunate the way football's gone, but that is the way it's gone. And you kind of have to kind of buck the trend and kind of keep up with everything. Player-wise, his numbers haven't been amazing at Dortmund. No, I watched him a lot last season, but there's no doubt he was carrying a lot of weight in his shoulders through that team. He is a very, very good footballer, and for 19 years old, he's more mature than people give him credit for as well on the pitch. The other great thing about him as well, he doesn't need a visa, because I think he has a Croatian passport or something like that. I think his grandfather's Croatian, so he's getting in that way as well. So there's no worries about kind of work permits or any nonsense like that. But yeah, who's to say? He's what is he? 19 years old. In 8 years' time, he's going to be 27. He'll probably be the US captain, all going well, and to lead his country out for the World Cup, being a Liverpool player in the US, and the way kind of football's going over there. We've seen just how big Liverpool support is in America. We played in Michigan. It holds 105,000, and we're led to believe that 70,000 were Liverpool fans. They're playing their biggest rivals, one of the biggest clubs in world football, and where we're overtaking them in kind of, the supporters over there, which is brilliant. I wouldn't be surprised, going back to the kind of Naby Keita situation, if we do sign Pulisic and he's at Anfield for, let's say, July 2019.
Interesting stuff. Did you see, Dave, the images of LeBron James? So he put up a couple of images, obviously, of himself in a Liverpool top, and then an image of him in a US men's national team shirt with Pulisic 10 on the back.
And obviously, to tie that in as well, when LFC TV were doing a video, Klopp was just messing about in kind of a breakfast area or a restaurant or something like that. And he said something like, "I need to ask LeBron James for it." It's a complete coincidence. But yeah, I did see that picture, and the pulling power for LeBron James as well, being, he's a shareholder at the club, is huge. So Chelsea are meant to be infirmed. There was talk. I was talking to actually a mate of mine at work today who's a huge Dortmund fan, and he said, "I've heard from a lot of people that Madrid are really interested in him, but I can't see it happening with either of those clubs. It'll be Liverpool, or he'll sign a new contract at Dortmund." That's my honest opinion.
Well, I was lucky enough actually to get in contact with Christian Pulisic's father about the deal to go to Chelsea, and he said, "Look, I'll be honest with you, mate, they're all fucking rent boys. Every last one of them, all rent boys, and he's got no interest in going there. So look, take from that what you want. I'm just passing along information." Dave, go into your head time. Yeah. Go into your head time. Does anything get done before the window closes?
Absolutely, yeah. I do, and as I said, it's great that we don't know, because the way the club have conducting their business and have conducted their business this window has been absolutely superb. Don't be surprised if 2 players come in, because there is going to be outgoings. There's going to be a lot of outgoings between now and Thursday at 11 o'clock or whatever the transfer closes. I can see probably 4 or 5 players leaving, either on loan or sold, and inevitably I can see maybe 1 or 2 coming in. And
Chris, final word on this to you. Do you see anything happening with regards to Liverpool signing anybody before the window closes?
I think there's definitely players we're interested in, and there's definitely a want to bring a certain type of player in. We know that because of what happened with Fekir. That transfer all but happened. So, Klopp hasn't decided all of a sudden that he doesn't want that type of player, and the club haven't decided all of a sudden that they're not going to bring that type of player in. I think heads need banging together for that to happen. And I also think at this point, I don't think we were perhaps going to pay through the nose for Alisson. And I think because we have, I think we are looking at perhaps shifting a couple of players out. Now, if we're looking to get the best part of 45 million in or so, just for Ings and Origi, I think that there is what would perhaps free up the funds for Klopp then to be able to say, right now, can I go get this player? In which case I think it'll happen. But I think there's a little bit of jostling for position going on. That's why we're not hearing anything from Liverpool. And I think if we are going to land any of those players, I still got the sneaky feeling that it would be Fekir. I really have. Did you see Klopp being asked some questions about Fekir? I think it was after one of the matches over in the States. Was it after the City game? I'm not too sure. He was really non-committal on saying anything. And I think if we had moved on, I think Klopp perhaps would have just said we'd moved on. If there was absolutely no interest in bringing that player to the club anymore, Klopp would have said there and then, wouldn't he? And then we'd be reading a whole lot of more rumours about other players. We'd probably be signing Hazard according to the rumour makers, wouldn't we, or something. So it's, I still think something will happen, but I think it's going to take things to make it happen. If it doesn't happen now, I think we're looking at like a VVD situation where it may get revisited in January.
Interesting stuff.
That's my view.
Dave, we should switch over now and have a talk about outgoings. Now, today we've seen that young Ben Woodburn signed a loan agreement with Sheffield United. Many of us thought he was going to go to Aston Villa, but look, he switched it up last minute, got to Sheffield United. But the ones I really want to talk about is the goalkeeping situation, buddy, because many of us thought that Simon Mignolet was going to move on this summer. But But it looks as if there's a possibility, and obviously we can't say this for true, but there's a possibility that both goalkeepers, and by both obviously I mean Simon Mignolet and Loris Karius, may move on this summer. What's your thoughts on that?
It'd be disappointing, if I'm honest with you, if Karius goes, because I still think he is actually a decent keeper. He just needs a confidence boost and maybe just a bit of time out of the spotlight. Mignolet, his time is gone at Liverpool, absolutely. And if we're led to believe that Barcelona and Besiktas are in for him in the region of 12 million, absolutely just get it done as quick as possible.
I think he's worth more than that, by the way. That figure has really fucking pissed me off, if I'm being honest. I think an established goalkeeper like him, 30 years of age, with the experience he has, should be worth more than 12 million quid.
In this market, I do agree with you. I do absolutely agree with you. With some of the, we're going to get it on to later on the transfer, or in the pod, regarding who's done well in the transfer market. But some of the figures that players are going for now, who are average at best, it's crazy. But look, that's the figures that have been banded around. I don't think anyone will know the exact figure. Knowing Michael Edwards, we might get 20 million for him. And that wouldn't be a surprise either, because it's just such a good transfer window so far, with the ins and the outs. We got 12 million for Danny Ward, or between 10 and 12 million, sorry. So, you're talking about a lad who, as you rightly said, he's established in the Premier League. He's just finished third with his country in the World Cup. It doesn't look like there's another Belgian keeper that's going to kind of take his place on the bench either. Now, I could be wrong, but yeah, it'd be disappointing just to get that for him. But at the end of the day, 12 million still is 12 million in the back pocket for Liverpool. On to Karius, again, he's been linked with Leverkusen heavily as well over here, linked with Leverkusen. I've heard a few rumours from a few decent publications as well, or read, should I say. It'd be nice if it was just a loan deal, but I can't see that happening. I think it'll either be sold or he'll stay. There won't be a loan deal. Again, I could be wrong. I don't know anything, but that's just my opinion.
Sorry, Dave. What do you think if he was to go back to Leverkusen? I say back to Leverkusen, back to Germany with Leverkusen. What type of figure do you think Liverpool would ask for Karius? Because obviously we paid 4.5 million quid.
Leverkusen aren't stuck for cash. Again, we'll probably be looking in and around the Mignolet Ward fee as well, so between 12 and 15 million.
Interesting. So if they did move the keeper onto Arsenal, of course, during the summer, so
Correct.
there should be a vacancy there.
Correct. And as I said, even apart from the money they got in for the keeper to Arsenal, Leno, like the Bayer, they're run by the biggest pharmaceutical company easily in the world, so they're not short of a few quid.
Chris, coming over to you, buddy, for the goalkeeper situation. Do you think we're just going to see Simon, SpongeBob SquareHead, Mignolet move on, or do you think maybe there's a possibility that both move on?
As things stand, I think only Mignolet's going to be the one out the door. Just owing more to the fact that I know Karius has kind of voiced his displeasure at us bringing in a new goalkeeper. I don't think he's really got the legs to stand on there, has he? And I think he knows that's perhaps spell the end of his future at the club. So I think it comes down to whether Karius walks in that office this week and says, look, I want a new club, I want a new start. And whether that means a loan, I think it probably would mean a loan. I don't think anybody's spending money on him at this point.
Let me ask you this then as a follow-up, Chris. If we get rid of him and we got rid of Mignolet, and look, we can come back to the figures in a second, what do we do then? Do we promote one of the youngsters through? Obviously, we've sent one of them off to Tranmere Rovers, wasn't it? We sent one of the goalkeepers off to recently, signed a new deal, then headed off to Tranmere Rovers.
Shamal George, yeah.
So he's gone for the season. So then we're looking at what? Grabara, Queevy and Kelleher.
Grabara. Yeah. I think one of them will be promoted. And if you look at them, none of them look bad goalkeepers, do they? But you do need somebody a bit more solid, a bit more experienced, don't you, if you're going to have a number two? A broken pinky for Alisson, and that's it. You're calling on number two, aren't you, for a while? There's options, I'm sure there is. We faced a goalkeeper the other night who was a very good, experienced old head who's going to do Manchester United a job if ever called upon. In Grant, he Stoke fans will tell you he's a very, very good goalkeeper. They never noticed Butland went missing, apparently. They were very happy with Grant. So that's the kind of signing we need. Everybody is going to be romantic about it, aren't they? And ask for Pepe Reina back. And, I'm not sure that's the way to go. I think somebody who is particularly quite happy to sit there in the background and then come in and do a job when required. There's options out there, but that's if somebody takes Karius. I'm not sure somebody will at the moment. I really don't. People seem to think it's as simple as him go and get a new start somewhere. Like he gets on a plane, Karius 0.1, and then gets off a plane the other side, Karius 0.2. It's not. He's not just going to level up just by moving a club. He's got some issues. Everybody in the world saw his mistakes, so everybody in the world's going to be on his case, whatever club he's playing for. Whatever stand he is stood in front of when he's in goal, they're going to be giving him shit for 90 minutes. He's going to have the same nerves. His confidence is going to be just the same. So I don't think anybody is really going to take that chance. Certainly not at a level of football where that you should be aiming at anyway.
Yeah, I think a move back to Germany, to somebody like a Leverkusen, even just for the familiarity of the country, the people, the culture, everything like that may help him. And he will be out of the limelight to a degree. I know the Bundesliga is watched, but not with the same audience that there is for the Premier League.
Perhaps not, but you've got to think. We look at this from Karius's point of view. We look at this from Liverpool's point of view. You look out from the other club's point of view as well, haven't you? If you're a club and you want to bring in a goalkeeper to be a first choice goalkeeper, because that's what we're talking about. If we want Karius to go and mend himself, he needs to do it as a first team goalkeeper. He needs to face shots, doesn't he, and crosses and free kicks, corners, the lot. He needs to do some goalkeeping. So, and at a decent standard as well. So if you're that club of a decent standard and you're looking for a first team goalkeeper, you could probably find you could find at least 20 better options. You could be bringing in one. The type of old goalkeeper that we, experienced head that we want to bring in as a number 2 would do a club like Leverkusen as a number 1. So. He's battling against that. I can't see him getting a move, whether he wants one or not. I think he's going to struggle for that, to be honest.
I think for a loan move, Chris, what benefits everybody there is, so he goes, obviously he knows he's there for the year. The club know they haven't committed to buying anybody, but if he does have a decent season, then clearly Liverpool are going to get more money from than they would if they sold him today, if they decide to move him on. And secondly, the buying club will probably pick up a player who they may have to pay a lot more in a few years for very cheap.
It's very possible, but there's also the possibility that, he recognises that he's at a club who have got a manager who, regardless of fan and public and media and press opinion, will throw him in if needed to. If Klopp decides he wants to use Karius in the domestic cups, he will use him. He won't care about what everybody thinks about it. And if he uses him and he performs well, then he may move on the following season and we may get a higher fee for him then. So, it's staying is an option and performing at Liverpool is an option because he has got a manager who will trust him to play games. It may not to be a first choice, but he will use him. He will help him as well. He's never once thrown him under the bus. And people go, yeah, well, it's going out and spending a world record fee on a goalkeeper. It's throwing him under the bus, basically telling him he's shit. It's not. As far as we're concerned, we've just gone out and signed the world's best goalkeeper. I don't think Karius is sitting there in his room thinking, hold on, I'm better than Alisson. So he's got to have some realism about him, hasn't he? He's got to think about this. If I leave, I'm only going to be able to go to a really low standard of football to get first team football. If I'm not guaranteed at that point then to work my way back up to the level of football I want to play in. Because let's go back to before we signed him. He was being talked about as being Germany's future goalkeeper. If he wants to get back to that, he needs to remain at a high level of football. And I think that's only going to happen if he leaves Liverpool. So he leaves a high-level club to go to another high-level club. And I think that's only going to happen if he manages to get some games at Liverpool, which no doubt, I think if he stays, he will. We will see him play. I don't think Alisson's not going to play every single game. I can guarantee you that. It's just not going to happen. He will get used.
To back up what you were saying there about the club not throwing him under a bus and Klopp not throwing him under a bus, that is completely true, because we know for a fact that Liverpool inquired about Alisson last January when the goalkeeper situation at Liverpool was up in the air. Yeah. So it wasn't because of the Champions League final suddenly Klopp goes out and buys a goalkeeper. He's wanted Alisson for a while.
That's exactly right. And there's no chance on God's green earth that Karius hasn't been sat down by Klopp and explained the situation and the plan and the future and the upward curve we're going to be on and what we're going to need to do to get there. He will have sat down with every player and done that most likely. He'll have done that upon signing a player. So he will have known. He will have known that we're in the market for goalkeepers, and he will have known that Alisson will have been one. Klopp's going to be honest with his players. From what we hear, he is, isn't he? I know we're not party to the conversations, but what his players tell us is that he's very honest about. He's a straight shooter. They know where they are with him. We've gone on and we've eulogised about Klopp and the way he is as a man manager. And I think if a player felt that he was being shortchanged by Klopp or Klopp had bullshitted him at some point, we would have known. But you never hear those kind of reports, do you? So I think all in all, I think the best case scenario is he perhaps just stays where he is. He's got the right manager who's going to use him, however sparingly he's going to use him. And hopefully he'll move on further down the line. I think he's too good a goalkeeper if his confidence is put right. If he can find, it sounds terrible, but if he can find himself again, I think he will get a move to a decent club and get, forge himself a good career. It's just one of those things, isn't it, that have happened, that's happened to him, and he's struggled to get over it. Clearly his confidence is gone, doesn't make him a bad goalkeeper. So maybe once Liverpool have shown the rest of the footballing world that we've got a goalkeeper, we've got the world's best goalkeeper between the sticks. When Karius does come in to play, I don't know, in a cup game or whatever, it's not a case of, beating up Liverpool by giving the goalkeeper a load of shit. It just won't matter as much. So maybe it's just a good idea that he perhaps just stays put at this moment in time, because we're not going to get anything for him. I think unless we're going to give him away, and unless he's willing to earn a lot less and go down a peg or two, down a rung of the ladder, it's not worth him moving. I can't see him wanting to go to a lower level, and I can't see us wanting to sell him for peanuts.
Are we reading too much maybe between the lines as well, that Alisson has the number 13 on his shorts and on his trading top, and clearly Alisson wants the number 1 jersey, but with Karius still at the club as not the number 1 keeper, but squad number 1, is that kind of a sign that maybe he's staying as well?
Well, talking about the situation of numbers there, both Alisson and Fabinho don't technically have squad numbers available on the Liverpool store to buy.
No, that has to be sorted out in the next 4 days, I think, because the squad numbers and the full teams have to be submitted to the Premier League, and then they have to do it again immediately after the transfer window closes.
Dave, before we are going to push on to other clubs, but before we do that, I want to have a quick chat with you, buddy, about the future business that we can expect from Jurgen Klopp and this Liverpool team, because we've seen he's been quite heavily backed over recent windows by FSG, and rightly so. He's starting to build a squad now that looks more in his image. Do we think going forward we're perhaps going to see less and less signings, maybe just 2-3 faces to freshen things up a little bit? Do you think, basically what I'm saying is, do you think he's front loaded here for a squad?
I think for this season, certainly, because I think he knows, and I think we've agreed on this on transfer podcasts before, that Liverpool is in such a good place that if we do need world-class players now, to really push the team forward. But kind of if you look at the squad as well, it is a relatively average age of the squad is relatively young. I'm looking at the likes, I suppose, leaving. Let's say you have Mignolet, Clavan, maybe over the next season. Midfield, then James Miller's not getting any younger, unfortunately. Up front, then, there's no real old players. Maybe Danny Sturridge, is this going to be his last season? And I'm just talking age-wise here. But Klopp at Dortmund, he wasn't shy of signing players, 4 or 5 players every season. Now, whether that be a January transfer window or a summer transfer window. So it's hard to predict. I think with this season and with Christmas, with the January transfer window, it does obviously depend on who's going out, because we can't be too shy in any department now if the club wants to push on, because hopefully we're going to be in for 60, 65 games again this season. And you need 20 to 25 world-class players in order to do that.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And it has been interesting to see how he's gone about his business. And we were speaking before we came on air, Dave, about what you could call a success rate of signing so far. And it's been pretty damn impressive, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, it's been fantastic. Even look, we were talking back to his Dortmund days. He came in. I think he came to Dortmund in the 7-8 season, and he signed Subotic for 4 million, Matt Hummels for 3.5 million, Sven Bender for 1.35 million. Just unbelievable. Lewandowski for 4.2 million. Sorry, unbelievable money. And you look at what the players went for then. So I think that's where the FSG have the trust in Klopp. Now, I know he worked with Michael Zorc, who's a fantastic sports or football director, when you want to call him, but we have one too in Edwards, and I think the two boys, Klopp and Edwards, are working very, very well together, because it's not only who they're signing, but it's kind of the rate at the signing them at as well. And players want to come to Liverpool. We've seen that. We've seen that with Kayeta. He turned down a move to Barcelona. He turned down a move to Bayern Munich. Van Dijk's turned down a move to City and Chelsea. Oxlade-Chamberlain, Chelsea. So that's, I can't give any more encouraging signs than that. So I'm confident, that if Klopp wants a player, not only will FSG back him, but the player will come as well.
Chris, I want to finish up this podcast, buddy, by having a little chat about the business done by Premier League clubs in general in this window. So basically where I wanted to go with this was I wanted to give you your best and your worst from the club's business that's been done so far. Obviously, we've seen some clubs. I think Liverpool has spent the most by a fair amount in this window so far. So who's been good, who's been bad for you, what business has impressed you and what business hasn't?
It's not really a lot of business to talk about, is there really? I mean, you can look at West Ham. You can say they've had a relatively good window. I think people get a little carried away with what they've done. Although I do think they certainly are going to be stronger than they were last season. So yeah, you've got to say they've had a good window. Arsenal, I think they've gone a little bit under the radar with their signings. They're not sort of headline signings, are they? But I think I've said it before. They've sort of plugged some gaps, which I think is, and I still think they've got a bit more to go. So I think they've had an okay window so far. But other than them and ourselves, I don't really see that anybody's had a particularly good window. I know Man City have signed Mahrez, haven't they? But does he improve them massively? It doesn't improve their first team massively. Just options thereafter. Although they weren't exactly low on options, were they? So no, Spurs, they've done nothing. But I don't think Spurs are starting to really need to do a lot. I think their main sort of weapon, and it has been over the last couple of seasons, has been continuity and consistency. And I think they're still going to have that, aren't they? They're still going to be a good football team, and they're still going to win a lot of football matches, even with the players that they've got. So it's difficult to pull anybody out there and say they've had a good window. I don't think anybody can shout from the rooftops about any business that they've done. don't know how you see it. There's just nobody stands out.
Honestly, and I'd say it was us. If I'm being blatantly honest, we've had the best window by a country mile.
You can't argue with that. I mean, I always think, every time I praise Liverpool, people think I'm being biased, but I think this time, I really do think we have nailed. We've not put that sort of icing on the cake, have we, with the with getting Fekir over the line? Had we got him over the line, I don't think you'd be able to argue whatsoever with the window that we've had. Although right now I feel that we could go into the season without bringing anybody else in and still have a very good season. What we have done is we've addressed our major issue, which was depth, and I think we've given ourselves far more options, and I'm also including Sturridge coming back into the fray at this point, because he does look like a player who is hungry again. And I'm also including a couple of young lads there as well that, quite frankly, I didn't know would be able to make that step up quite so well, and that's Camacho and Jones. And I think we're going to see them two quite a bit this season. So, just outside of it, not even including the players we've signed, but players that we already had at the club or out on loan, I think we've got enough to go in the season. So you're just looking at what could be done between now and the end of the season. 7 days left of the window. Man United fans, Chelsea fans, particularly those two clubs, to be honest. I'll also include Spurs fans as well. They're all hoping for a number of big signings, and you don't get a number of big signings into one club in the space of a week. I think there's a lot more work that has to be done in a big signing, isn't there? If Chelsea think they're going to get 4 or 5 top class players in the space of a week, they've got another thing coming. I think the change of in the window this season, plus the World Cup, I think it's left clubs wondering what to do. A few clubs have sat around scratching their arse all summer, thinking they're being clever, and I think they've left themselves get caught out a little bit. I think they're going to struggle to, because the clubs in Europe are not asked whether we can get our business done. Juventus are not bothered who Higuain goes to, for example, are they? As long as they get the players in that they want, which they have done.
He's pretty much gone to Milan today, mate.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. But, Chelsea wanted him. They've left it late in the window to do that business. And now they've given themselves a week to find an alternative. That doesn't bother Juventus. Juventus were never in any rush to sell to Chelsea because Chelsea were in a rush. So I think the way Liverpool have attacked this window was not just aggressive. I think it was clever.
Yeah.
Chris, I heard something today on the news. I think it was on Sky Sports News, where they were saying that Roman Abramovich and the head of his recruitment team were meeting in the south of France to discuss today what players they're willing to let go and what players they're going to bring in during this window. As you rightly said, with 7 days to go, that seems absolute fucking madness, buddy.
It's arrogance beyond belief. There's
it really absolute. Is,
There's no reason why on earth any top club in Europe would want to sell their players to a Premier League club, just because the Premier League club's window's ending. You could, if you're, I don't know, let's say you're Real Madrid with Gareth Bale, and Manchester United and Chelsea both want Gareth Bale, and you don't want Gareth Bale to go. You've got a week to hold out, and then if Gareth Bale really wants to leave, well, there's a whole host of other clubs in Europe he could possibly go to, but you've not strengthened any Premier League sides, and you've got rid of a lot of competition for his signature. So, you know what I mean? You've reduced the chances of him leaving. It's just a great big game of poker going on out there now. This is the first time we've had this situation, isn't it? This change in the window, and adding the World Cup into the mix as well has really just sort of put the cat amongst the pigeons. And I don't think a lot of the clubs knew what they were doing. I think Arsenal saw it, got some business done. Liverpool saw it, got some business done, albeit in a better manner than Arsenal. I think we've really have done well in this window. And I think a lot of the clubs around Europe are just laughing at it because they're not in any rush. They want our window slam shut so that we aren't we're not cherry picking their players with, overblown fees and overblown wages and the pulling power of the Premier League. They'd be quite happy to sit on their hands and let the deadline pass, won't they?
Absolutely. I get you. I fully get where you're coming from. And Dave, before we finish up tonight's pod, I just want to get the same from you. So who you think's had a good window? Who you think's had a bad window? And also just touch on what Chris was talking about there in regards to European clubs sitting back, looking at what happens during the next week of the English window, and then knowing that they're not going to have to perhaps go and pay overinflated prices for players that they would have if a Premier League club had gone in for them.
No, it's and really, really good points. But I think a club who's done really good business is Wolves. I think they'll be solid enough this year. Like they've signed, obviously, Patricio on a free transfer. They've signed Jimenez from Benfica, Matinho from Monaco. I think they signed Jota as well from Atletico Madrid. So they've really strengthened. And they've been clever. They haven't paid huge fees for any of them players. I don't know what they're paying wages wise. A laughable transfer window is Everton. That's as simple as that. What they've played for players that have come in there is just an absolute joke.
Beautiful tattoo, by the way, on Lucas Digne. We do have to touch on that.
I never walk alone. Yeah.
Beautiful tattoo. Lovely sentiment from the young man.
Absolutely, yeah. But yeah, they've what they played for the lad from Watford. 50 million quid. Fucking hell, that's serious money for a player who. The only thing for me, he has pace. Now I could be shooting myself here in the foot, and he could work out to be an amazing transfer for Everton. But on the surface and on the face of it, I don't see he's a £50 million player. Simple as that.
To me, that smacks of a manager who can't attract players in, has worked with Richarlison, and is one of the only players who was willing and able to get in.
Correct. 100%, yeah.
What was the exact fee we got Naby Keita for? It was 54, wasn't it?
No, 47.5 million. So because
was that it? Oh yeah, they didn't qualify for the Champions League, did they?
Correct, yeah.
Yeah. So we paid less for a midfield player who was considered to be one of your top 3 midfield players in a whole country. It's if you're paying that money, you've got to guarantee you're getting one of the best players in their position, in their league, or in certainly in their team. I think Everton have done that with Richarlison, have they? There's no doubt he's a talented player, but he's not a deadly player. You wouldn't have put him in the top 15, 20 players in the Premier League, would you? So for that money, no, it's I can't get my head around that. They've been taken, been taken over a barrel, haven't they, with that one?
Oh, big time, yeah, big time. And again, long may that continue, because the same thing happened with who they've signed another 2 players there. So they're let's say their top 3 transfers cost, I think it's 40% more than what Liverpool's front 3 does, or did, should I say? So yeah, look, good luck to them, but I don't think it's going to work out from this season as well. Regarding the window, there's a few ways you could look at this. Obviously, it should be no surprise to Premier League clubs. 16 out of the 20 Premier League clubs voted for the window to close before the league kicked off. I agree with 100% what Chris said regarding Chelsea. It just stinks of, we can just do anything we want. And we can see that players are rejecting them. Alisson's rejected them, and Higuain's rejected them.
Don't forget Pulisic's entourage called them all rent boys as well, so we have to take that into account when we spoke to them. When we got that exclusive.
Who spoke with them? Was it Manuel?
No, it was Lucas. My 6-year-old son managed to get through, and he spoke to them. And he came in saying, Daddy, all rent boys, Daddy, all rent boys.
You knew what he was on about then straight away, exactly. But it's true. It just smacks of, lack of preparation and just complete ignorance to what's happening. Thankfully, we're not in that ship. We've done our business early. I do still think we're close to signing maybe 1 or 2 more players. But the other clubs in Europe, of course they can sit back. But what they can also do as well is they can also smell the desperation from maybe these clubs and say, well, look, if you need a player that bad, Transfer's just gone up by 15 million, just like that. And that's the way it's going to happen. That's the precedent that you're setting then as well if you don't do your business early. You're going to get in the wrong player, you're going to get in a player too quickly, and you're going to inevitably overpay for that player as well. So hence why... Go on, sorry, mate, yeah.
It's not just the transfer fee as well. It's agent's fee, wages.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's the whole package, and as I said, so if you look at, let's say, we'll give you an example. Let's say Pulisic, he wasn't linked with Liverpool, okay? And Chelsea are desperate for a right winger. And they've just gone to Dortmund. Okay, yeah, we want Pulisic. Oh, yeah, there's 7 days left in your window. No, we're all right, yes. We'll reject your first bid. Well, how much do you want from him? Well, we were looking for 60, but now we might want 80. Oh, shit, okay. Now, they know Chelsea also have the money as well. But as Chris said, you have your agent's fee. And Pulisic then, he can turn around and say, well, look, if you want me badly, I don't know what he's on now with Dortmund. Let's say, we'll round it up. Let's say he's on 100k with Dortmund. He's just gone there. Well, I want you to double, or I want 250 grand a week. And Chelsea are going to go, we actually really need this player. We're in a really bad situation. We're just going to pay it. Doesn't make sense.
No, I don't know if we're ever going to get to a place where this can all be resolved and all the clubs. I know some leagues start a week after the Premier League, for instance. So will we ever get this resolved, Dave, do you think? Will it get to a stage where all European clubs agree to a date where the window has to close? And by all European clubs, I mean the major leagues here, because I know some leagues, like the Irish League, for instance, that goes on throughout the summer. I think is it what league are Rosenborg in?
Norwegian, yeah, all the Scandinavian, they all have different transfer windows in different seasons because of obviously weather and what have you. But to answer your question, mate, it comes down to the football association of that country. It's not UEFA's decision to call when transfer windows open and close. It is down to the football association in accordance with FIFA, but it's not FIFA who have the final say. As I said, it was 16 out of the 20 Premier League clubs that agreed to have the transfer window close on the 9th. So, unfortunately, there isn't going to be no answer. Maybe the Premier League clubs, if it hasn't worked out this window, or let's say the next one, maybe they can vote back and say, well, look, we'll leave it now to the end of August. But I think there just needs to be, as you said, for the top 6-7 leagues in Europe, there needs to be a window. This is when it opens. This is when it closes. And this is the same for absolutely everyone. But the problem you're looking at there, let's say Germany, it starts a week later than it actually starts. No, it starts on the 23rd, I think, the Bundesliga. But they have less teams in their league. They have 18 teams where we have 20. So are we going to get to the stage where they have to cut down the numbers on the Premier League teams as well in order to kind of facilitate the changes within these transfer windows? It's an interesting topic.
Guys, we're going to have to leave it there. There are 7 days to go in this transfer window. One thing is for sure, when we record the next and the final transfer talk podcast of this window, we'll know how things are shaping up a lot better. Massive thank you to Chris and to Dave for joining me on this one. As I said, we will return with one more Transfer Talk podcast before this window closes. Until then, enjoy the rest of your week and thanks for joining us.